In this video, we're going to talk about Jetpack Compose side effects. We're going to talk why do we need side effects, what are they, and we're going to go through each side effect we have in Jetpack Compose. And I will also provide you some pretty good examples that will leave you with no doubt. Okay, so side effects in Jetpack Compose are a set of APIs that allow us to use non-UI code inside a composable scope. So let's say you want to call a suspend function from a composable function, or let's say you want to subscribe or unsubscribe on an observable object from a composable function. By default, you can do that, but with side effects, there are some APIs that allows you to do such things. And in Jetpack Compose, there are 8 side effects that we're gonna go through each one of them. I have ordered these side effects according to their usage, so we're gonna start with the most common one and the most used side effect until we reach to the least used one. So let's start with the first side effect we have for today, which is LaunchedEffect. So with this side effect, you can basically launch a CoroutineScope from a composable function. Let's see how that works. So let's say you have some kind of suspend function that you want to call from a composable function. What you can simply do now is just to say LaunchedEffect, and let's leave the key here and let's just open the body of this LaunchedEffect. Now inside this scope, you basically can call any suspend function. So you can say, for example, delay for 2 seconds. And yeah, so you can call any suspend function. Not only that, but you can also create child coroutines and so on. So the key here determines when this block should be relaunched. So every time the key here changes, this block will be cancelled and relaunched again. Let's say you want to launch it for only one time. You, for example, pass any constant value like a unit, for example. And let's, for example, say you have some state here, text by remember, mutable state of, and let's say each time this text changes, you want to just execute this block. You basically pass this text as a key for this LaunchedEffect. So now each time this text changes, this LaunchedEffect will be launched again. And you can pass more than just one key. So you can say key2, and you can pass any object here, or you can just delete this and you can pass var args of keys. So you can say text, you can say unit, you can say false, true, and you get the idea. So now let's take a practical example on LaunchedEffect and see how it actually used. So we go to LaunchedEffect here. Let's see, I have some examples. They are already prepared. So I'm gonna go to the example of LaunchedEffect, and here we have this example. So the requirement of this example is to create a counter, which is a composable function that takes the maximum count and takes a higher order function that get called on each count change. So how do we do that with Compose? First of all, we want to create a state for the counter, and we're going to start from 0. And then, since between each count and the other count, we're going to have a delay of 1 second, it makes sense to use LaunchedEffect. Why? Because, again, the LaunchedEffect just give us a CoroutineScope, and then we can call just a delay function. And that's what we're doing here. So here we delay this scope for 1 second. Then we call on count change, and we send this counter, and then we make counter plus plus. Now, when we make counter plus plus, this state is going to get changed. And because we pass in this state as a key, this LaunchedEffect will be triggered again, and we're gonna just delay again. Then we're gonna call this higher order function, and then we're gonna say counter plus plus. Again, the state is going to change. We're gonna execute this block again. And this acts like a loop. So when this loop ends, well, we have a condition for that in here. When the counter is bigger or equal to max plus 1, then we just return. So we can definitely make a comment here, and we can just use for I in 0 until we reach the maximum count. Here we can simply make a delay of 1 second, and then we can say on count change, we send the counter, and we can say counter plus plus. This will definitely work the same, but I wanted to show you how we can do it with keys, because here keys are very important in LaunchedEffect. So let's just uncomment this, and now if we go to the main activity, we can just call counter, and we can send 10, for example. Here we can make a log statement .d, let's say test, and here we can just say, yeah, we can just print the count. And let's just launch the app to see that. Okay, let's open the log, And yeah, so here we should just get, yeah, so here's a count. It goes until 10. When it reaches 10 is going to stop. Yeah, so it stopped. So this is what LaunchedEffect for. We just can, yeah, we can just obtain a coroutine scope inside a composable function. Okay, so now let's move to the second side effect we have, which is rememberCoroutineScope. And this one is used to obtain a coroutine scope, but this time inside a callbacks like button clicks, for example. So let's just go to the example. And the example we have here is just a list of names, and we display it in a text composable inside a column, and this column is scrollable. And we also have a floating action button, and whenever we click on that floating action button, we need to scroll down. Now let me just call this so you can see this example. Okay, so as you can see, this is the list of the names. Here's the floating action button. When we click on this floating action button, we want to just scroll down to the maximum bottom or to the last item of this list. So let's see how we can do that. Let's go back to this composable function. So to do this thing here, we can simply say scroll state. So I have already created the scroll state, and I've also passed it to the column here. So now we can just use that, and we can call animate scroll to, and the value here should be the maximum value. So we can also get that from the scroll state, and we can say max value. So now we get an error from the compiler, and that says this function is a spent function and it should be only launched inside a coroutine scope. Now we are inside a callback. How we can get a coroutine scope inside a callback? Well, we need to use this side effect which called rememberCoroutineScope. So let's say here val scope equals rememberCoroutineScope, and here we can say scope.launch, and we can put this suspend function in here. Now the error is gone, and now we can just launch the app, and we can click on here to scroll down. Let's see that. So now if we click here, as you can see, we can scroll down. Now you might wondering, what is the difference between LaunchedEffect and rememberCoroutineScope? So let's here just try to use LaunchedEffect. Let's see what we get. So we can say LaunchedEffect, and let's pass unit, and let's also open the body here. So as you can see, we get an error, and the reason is because this LaunchedEffect is a composable function, and as you know, a composable function should be only called from another composable function, but here we're calling it inside a callback, so we can't just use that. So that's why we need basically to remember CoroutineScope to get a CoroutineScope inside a callback. Okay, now moving to the next side effect we have, which is DisposableEffect. So this one here used to make or to subscribe or unsubscribe on an observable object. So to make this clear, let's just directly code to the example we have, which is a lifecycle listener. So our job here is just to create a composable function that will just listen to the activity lifecycle. So you know the activity has onCreate, onStart, onResume, and all of these callbacks. Now our job is just to make a composable function to listen to these events. So how do we do this? Well, to do this, we basically need to register an observer and remove the observer when we don't need it. So to do that with compose, you can use DisposableEffect, and the DisposableEffect here needs the key. So the key is just the same. Whenever this key changes, this effect or this block or this DisposableEffect will be triggered again. And now how do we just listen to the events? We need to get an object from this interface, and here we can check for the event. So if the event onCreate, we call or we invoke the onCreate lambda function here, and if it's onStart, we invoke onStart, and so on. Now we have not added the observer yet, so we just checked for the event, invoked the callbacks, but we have not just added this observer, this one here. So how do we add it? Inside this effect block, we can say lifecycle owner, which we get an object from here, lifecycle.add observer, and we add this instance here. And now where do we remove it? We remove it inside onDispose. So we can just say onDispose and remove this observer. And this onDispose will be called when this composable function get destroyed. And yeah, this onDispose will basically get called. So this onDispose gets called to just make cleanup, and it will be called when this composable function here get destroyed. Now let's go to the main activity and use this one. So you can say live cycle listener. And let's say you wanna just listen to the on resume. Here we can say on resume. Let's launch the app. Go to the logcat to see if we get that. Okay, so we got on resume, but now we want to kind of like simulate when this on this post gets called. So we're just gonna write a log here, and we can say remove observer. So as I said, this one here will be called when this function gets destroyed. And how do we simulate this now? Let's say you have two screens. Let's say the screen number one is login screen, and let's say screen number two is home screen. And let's just take this thing here, the listener, and put it inside the login screen. And here, let's say you have a state called screen by remember immutable state of. And initially, we want to start from the login screen. Okay, now let's say we want to have a button. We want to just put that button inside the middle of the screen in the center. So we just fill the max size for this box, and we apply content alignment of center. And let's import this modifier here. Now we can say button, and on a click, let's leave that empty for now. And we just want to navigate to the home screen whenever we click on this button. So here we can say go to home. Okay, so on a click, we want to just change the state to home because we want to navigate to home. And here we can have when statement to check for the screen that we should show. So when it's login, we show the login screen. And when it's home, we show the home screen. So again, this is just to simulate when the undispose gets called. Now let's launch the app. Okay, so now we are on resume and we are inside the login screen. Now, when we click on the button, what we expect is to see remove observer because we're just gonna destroy the login screen. Let's see. Yup, we got remove observer. So again, let me explain what happened here. When we clicked on that button, this function here, this composable function got destroyed. This one as well, which has the listener. So when the listener got destroyed, we basically called undispose to make our cleanup. And that's what a DisposableEffect does. It just enables you to register or subscribe to observable object and do your cleanup like removing the observer. Okay, so the next side effect we have, which is derivedStateOf. And this one basically used to derive a state from another state. So the name already describes it. If you still don't get the idea, so let's say for example, you have state A and state B counts on state A. So you just can use derivedStateOf to obtain state B. Okay, to make this clearer, let's just go to the derivedStateOf example here. So in this example, as you can see, it's similar to the previous example we had when we had the names list. So here we have this time numbers, list of numbers, and we also have floating action button. Our job here is to only show this floating action button when we are at the item 5, and when we click on that floating action button, we want to scroll up. And of course here we just use a lazy column to show the list of the numbers, each one of them inside a text composable. So before implementing these to do comments, let me go to the main activity and call this one here just to show you what I mean. So as you can see, we have a list of numbers. This floating action button here should be invisible. And when we reach item number 5, we should just show it, and when we click on it, we want to scroll up. So let's see how we can do that. Here, first of all, we want to create a state for the floating action button visibility. So we can say is fab visible by remember. Okay, now how do we detect that? Okay, so now to detect the scrolling amount or the scrolling position, we need to use this state. So now we want to use a state inside another state, and that is a good sign where we should use derivedStateOf. So here we can say derivedStateOf, and now we can say scroll state first visible item index larger or equal to 5. Okay, so now here we can just say if is fab visible, then we put this floating action button inside there, And yeah, on a click, we want to scroll up. I've already showed you how to do that. So just take a little quiz here, pause the video and try to do that on your own. So to scroll up, we need to get CoroutineScope. We are inside our callback and we can here launch data scope. And now we can just say scroll state dot any scroll to, we want to scroll to the index number 0. Now if we launch the app, we should get the behavior. Okay, that's good. So the floating action button is invisible. When we reach item number 5, we showed it, and when we click on it, we scroll up, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, so the next side effect we have, which is produceState, and this one is used to convert a non-state value to a state. So let's say you have some function that returns some value and you want to turn that value into a state. With this side effect, you can do that. So let's see how we can, let's see its example so things can get clearer. So we have this composable function, which is called the post card, and we pass the post ID for this post card. Now we are required just to get the post information. We have this function which returns the post information. Okay, so how do we do that? We want to convert this post into a state because we want to reflect the UI according to that state. So to do that, to basically convert this result into a state, we can just use produceState. And here the type of this produceState is going to be just the same one that this function returns, result that has a post, and it could be null. The initial value here, again, since we want to turn this into a state, as you know, each state should have an initial value, and the initial value of this one is null. And now, how do we just assign, or how do we get this post? We can say value equals to get post information. And by the way, here you get the CoroutineScope, so you can just call any suspend function in here. So yeah, here you can just get the post information, and this post will be assigned according to this function. Now we can check for the post state. So if it's null, we know that it is loading. Else we can check if it's on success. We can, for example, show the post card, or if it's on failure, we can just show an error message. Okay, if this is still not clear, let me just comment this and let's try to implement produceState without choosing produceState. So here we can say var post by remember mutable state of. So the result we want to get from this function is a result of post, but initially that's going to be null. So here we want to specify result of post initially null. So what I'm trying to do here is just to, again, to create a produceState without choosing produceState, just to make you understand what produceState does. At the end, produceState is just a remember with a LaunchedEffect. And here we can just say LaunchedEffect. The key would be just unit. We want to launch this once. And the post here we can say equals get post information, and we pass the post ID. Now, these lines here are just the same as this one here. They are exactly the same. And even if you go to the implementation of this produceState, you will see that they are using the same concept here. So they are using remember with a LaunchedEffect to just assign or to convert your function into a state. So now we can just delete these and use the produceState. I hope it got clear. If not, just rewatch this part. Moving to the next side effect we have, which is also called SideEffect. Now with this side effect, you can basically change the non-composed state inside a composable function. And the most common use case for this is when you want to change the UI, and the way you want to change this UI is not supported by the Jetpack Compose APIs. So now it makes sense to use a side effect. And let's just take an example and things will get clear. So let's actually go to the example of SideEffect here. So the example is that we want to change the status bar color and the navigation bar color from a composable function. And to do such a thing, we need to get the window object, and then with that window object, we can say status bar color equals to the color we want to change it to, and same thing for the navigation bar color. But now, as you can see, this method here, the way that we are changing these colors, has nothing to do with the Jetpack Compose UI. So it makes sense to use SideEffect, and that's the only use case I've seen of SideEffect actually. And even if you go to the theme file, you can see that they are just changing the status bar color and the navigation bar color for you here in these lines here. Oh no, not the navigation bar color, but the status bar color here. So as you can see, they wrap this code with a side effect. So again, SideEffect is just used when you want to change an uncomposed state inside a composable function. And the way you want to change that state is not supported by the Jetpack Compose APIs. And the next side effect we have is rememberUpdatedstate. This one is used when we want to make a long running time side effect always up to date. Okay, I know that you didn't understand what I just said. By this example, I promise you that you will understand why do we need this side effect. Let's go to the example of this one, which is here. And yeah, this one here. So we have a screen, and this screen has two buttons, a red button here and a black button. We also have a state to store. We also have a state to save the color of the clicked button. So when we click on the red button, we're gonna just change the state here to red. And when we click on the black button, we're gonna change this state to black button. And initially this state is set to unknown. Then we have this timeout function, and this one basically has this log statement here that will basically print the button color. It will also have a LaunchedEffect that makes delay of 10 seconds, and this LaunchedEffect is only launched once. That's why we're passing null here. And then we also print the color inside this LaunchedEffect, but after the delay. Now let's call that inside the main activity. Timeout with two buttons, and let's launch the app. Okay, so now the app is launched. Let's click on red, we get red. Let's click on black, we got a black. But now after the delay just finished, we got unknown, and that is not what we expect. We should get black, right? Because the last pressed button was black. But why do we get unknown? Let's get back to the timeout function. And the reason is because this timeout function launched this LaunchedEffect and forgot about it, because it's just launched it once, and this LaunchedEffect did not get any updates when this button color got changed. And now how do we make this button color updated inside the LaunchedEffect? Well, we can use the SideEffect rememberUpdatedstate. So here we can say val button color updated by what do you call it, rememberUpdatedstate. Yup. And the new value would be button color, and that's it. Now if we just print button color updated, this value here will be always updated inside a LaunchedEffect even after the delay. So let's launch. Okay, so initially we get unknown, that's right. Click on red, click on black, click on red again. Now let's wait for the delay to end, and yeah, we got red, so that's right. We got the latest pressed button, and that's what we expect. Okay, so last but not least, the snapshotFlow. We can use snapshotFlow SideEffect to convert from a state to a Kotlin flow. And you might wondering, why do I need to do that? And you know, Flow has a strong tool which calls flow operators like map, filter, on each, collect. So sometimes you actually need to use these operators on a state, and the way to do that is to convert it into a flow first, then use these Kotlin flow operators. Okay, let's go to the snapshotFlow here and see how we can use the SideEffect. So we have a text field with this text state. What we want to do here is just to log the text if it's only larger than 5. We can make use of the filter operator for the Kotlin flow, but first we want to turn this state into a flow. So to do that, we can use the snapshot SideEffect. So as you can see, we turn this text here. So we say snapshotFlow, we open curly brackets, we pass the state, and we get a flow of string. Then we want to collect this SideEffect, so we can do that inside a LaunchedEffect. We pass a unit, we just want to collect it once, and here we can apply the filter, and again we just want to print, this if it's only larger than 5 characters, and then we collect this and print it in here. Let's launch this again. Okay, this is from the previous launch. Let me delete it, and here let's say hello. Okay, now if we type one more character, we should get that because now it's more than 5. And yeah, so that's why you need snapshotFlow to turn a state into a flow. Okay, so that was everything for this video. It was a long video, but I think I covered everything you want to know about side effects. Now you can go ahead and use it in your projects. And whenever you see some of these side effects, then you know what they mean. Because I remember when I was learning Jetpack Compose, side effects were one of the nightmares in Compose, but after I just started to reading about them, they sound like they are pretty fun. So again, thank you so much for watching this one. I hope you have a great day and catch you in the next video.